Thank you for being so patient while a couple of us ran from another event to this one. So my name is Liz Hendry. I'm the manager of the Careers Centre here at CDU. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather today, beautiful Larrakia country, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Welcome everyone to our third Insights to Industry event for this year, and in particular with the Faculty of Health, careers in social work and psychology. Such a great topic to get into on a Friday afternoon. Our Insights to Industry program is designed to help students and graduates discover other things that they could be doing with their degrees, that might be slightly non-traditional. It's to help them build confidence, to help them to learn how to talk to employers. So when we do some networking later, make sure that you're all brave and you do actually speak to some of the people that have come to be with you this afternoon. Let's get the thanks out of the way. Many thanks to everyone involved in bringing this event together today. Thanks to our industry partners and those that are on the panel today. We can't wait to hear your stories and experiences. Many thanks to industry partners who came here to network, and I'm sure they'll have plenty of stories to tell too. We have a long list and I might miss someone. My deepest gratitude goes to all of you. Many thanks for our champion academics and our faculty staff who connected us with their contacts in the industry and helped us promote these industry engagement events. Special thanks to Kim. It was your dream project to start with. And now we also have on board Angus, Carol, Nicole and Janet. So thank you very much to you guys too. Thanks to David from the alumni team for promoting the event to our alumni through their various channels. And last but not least, thanks to Tasvia who brought it all together. Don't panic, things are going well. Thank you to the students and graduates who are here today with us. A little bit of housekeeping. Bathrooms are out the doors you came in and around to the right as you go out the door. In the event of emergency, you can see where the exits are, just look for the green lights and follow CDU staff. We will be taking photos today. Dennis and the media team are going to be taking photos and little snippets of video for us to use on our social media. So if you don't want to be involved in any of that, please just let either Tassia or myself know, and we'll make sure that you're not in any of the photos we publish. Okay, so we've got the next 45 minutes to an hour to hear from our panel speakers, and then we're going to open the floor up for some networking. So without further ado, could I ask our panelists to come up and join me on stage? And if everyone could thank them as they come. So we've got Sasha from 221 Mental Health Charity. We've got Jeff from NT Mental Health Coalition, Carol from the Faculty of Health, Captain Nicholas from 1st Health Battalion in the Australian Defence Forces, and Vicky from NT Health Social Work Professional Lead, and Danielle, who's from Department of Territory, Families, Housing and Communities. Okay, welcome everybody. So I've got a microphone that I'm going to pass between all of you. Now, because there's quite a number of you on the panel, I'm not going to ask each of you to answer every single question, but also I don't want you to not speak up if you've got something to say. Okay. All right, so firstly, I might get you all to answer the first question. It'll be, tell us a little bit about yourself. Share your story of choosing your career path. or how you got to where you are today. How did you know which career direction you wanted to take? Yeah.
Okay, hi, my name's Angela Van Roden. I'm actually an alumni from Charles Darwin University. I started being interested in psychology from my own personal carer journey with my children, and I was a late starter, and I started my bachelor degree here in 2002 and finished at the end of 2006 with my honours degree and went straight on to start working at Catholic Care actually as a school-based counsellor, and then went on through my registration process and then was able to get a beautiful scholarship to Charles Sturt University in Bathurst to do my clinical master's program. So that's kind of how I got started, just personal interest really. Yep.
Hello everyone, my name's Vicky Ann. I was also a mature age student through CDU, and what happened to me was that my previous work before being a social worker was a case manager. For those of you that are old enough, you might remember the Commonwealth Employment Service. A lot of people won't if you're younger. So when I worked there for 20 years, I worked in a lot of roles that I was attracted to the disadvantaged clients. So I worked with prisoners coming out of jail looking for employment, young single mums, refugees, migrants, and people with a disability. So I was sort of attracted to helping those that were very vulnerable and disadvantaged in obtaining work. And when the CES closed, I went and then worked in the job network as a case manager. And I did some studies through Deakin University, a diploma in case management and unemployment. And then I went on to work for Centrelink as a personal advisor. And again, I was attracted to people that were having issues in the workforce. And I thought, I need to study social work. And it was difficult at first because with a family and everything, but I did it here at CDU and I graduated in 2010 and then went on to working as a social worker at the hospital for 11 years, then out to Palmerston Community Care and now the professional lead for social work. But I guess it really come from my work previous to becoming a social worker. And that's it.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Jarvis. I work in Territory Families Housing Communities, mostly in the housing space. So my journey has been a bit of a different one than most public servants. I worked in the NGO sector for most of my early career, both in Australia and then overseas. I specialised in international humanitarian law as an educator and did a lot of community development work there with the Red Cross. When I came back, it was before everyone started talking about trauma, post-traumatic stress. So that led me to do some more study in community development, and then I went on and studied in psych. I've had, I guess, a career that's been both a caseworker through to managing programs, and now I'm kind of gone in more into the executive stream within my own department. So I'm responsible for remote housing. And you're probably thinking, what's a psych doing in remote housing? Well, actually, there's a lot of reform work that's happening in my space that kind of brings together, you know, understanding what self-determination does from a point of self-empowerment. And I do run a lot of kind of personal programs that deal with trauma and supporting tenants and so on. So it's strange where psych can lead you. And I think it's such a fantastic area of study and application. You can kind of pivot from going back on the tools, as I say, through to understanding principles of what good program design looks like from a client-centered perspective. So I think it's a really valuable area.
Hey everyone, how we doing? So my name's Nick, or Captain Fifield, whatever you want to call me today. So my journey with psychology, I guess, originally started in 2011 at the University of Melbourne, where I did my Bachelor of Science, completing in 2013. Like 80% of my fellow graduates in 2013 didn't make the cut to honours originally, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm here today, so obviously something good happened eventually. So had a bit of one of those years trying to find my life or so. Ended up going, well, maybe being a combat medic in the Navy is probably the way to do that. So signed a 6-year contract with Navy, got my diploma of nursing, got my diploma of paramedicine, started around the world, did some other things like that. Eventually thought, well, I did my Bachelor of Science in Psychology. It's probably a bit of unfinished business there. So I did my 4th year via Monash University online. And thankfully was accepted to the Masters of Clinical Psychology program through Western Sydney University. Parallel to that process, also applied through Army for sponsorship for that pathway. So was lucky enough to receive a salary as well as have my master's paid for while I was studying. So it was a pretty good deal. Had some pretty awesome placements as well. And yeah, got posted up here to Darwin as an Army psychologist and to do kind of a nice mix between doing clinical style work as well as more organisational psychology work. Yeah, so that's my story.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff. I'm the CEO of the NT Mental Health Coalition, which is the peak body for community mental health in the Northern Territory. So my career has been a little bit all over the place. When I finished school, I got into physio. I became a disability support worker at the same time to help to pay for my studies and to keep me afloat, and realised that that was a career that I was enjoying more than the study. And so I moved and then studied disability and community-based rehabilitation. Which was a good move because at the same time, sort of the development and empowerment around the NDIS was happening as well. So there's lots of opportunities in the disability sector for psychologists and social workers, absolutely. I went overseas to Papua New Guinea and did an aid project over there for a bit. Unfortunately, the funding got cut off after 12 months. I was supposed to be there for 3 years. And a mate that I went to uni with was living in Alice Springs, and he said, I haven't seen you for 18 months, 2 years, just come and visit. And I went and visited, and he'd lined up a job interview for me, which was amazing, and gave me the opportunity to work in Central Australia and to really get to know community development principles, really understand the importance around cultural safety in practice, and understand the impact that the social determinants have, particularly on Territorians. And I've been in the Territory 12 years now. I've done a range of different roles in remote. I was in Alice Springs for 5 years, managed some youth programs. I worked on the Royal Commission into child protection and youth detention. I've been in the Commonwealth Government for a little while, and now I've been in my current role for 3 years. I'm really interested in program design that leads to effective outcomes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sasha. I am the founder of 221 Mental Health Charity. So we're a local organisation here in Darwin, and we provide mental health education. So little tiny organisation, but my journey to being where I am, I'll keep it concise because it's a little bit all over the place. But actually, when I left school, I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I did a year of fashion design when I left school, and realized it was more of a passion project than a career for me. I wasn't very competitive in it. It's a bit of a dog-eat-dog world in the fashion world. So yeah, it's now hemming pants. But yeah, I realized that I really love supporting people. I really, like human connection. And so then I started studying psychology because I thought it was interesting. And I don't think I really knew what a social worker was then. So I did 3 years of psychology, but, I was just out of school and I was just kind of going through it. I didn't really think about what career I wanted. And yes, when I hit 3rd year and I was like, I got to study really hard to get into honours to become a clin psych. I thought about it and I imagined what a clin psych was, and I was like, that's not what I imagined doing as a career, and realized that I was much more aligned with social work than psychology. So I was trying to work out how to keep studying. So I wasn't ready to hit the ground running yet. And I ended up doing extra 2 years of study to get 2 degrees now. So I have a Bachelor of Science Psychology as well as a Bachelor of Social Work. So a little bit of a journey to get there. And then I moved into working in community services when I moved to the Northern Territory. And I just saw the huge gaps in preventative work in the Northern Territory and just felt like I had to do something about it. So that's where 221 came from. It was really, people were just asking me to run education and training. And rather than doing that just for myself, I wanted to turn it into a community project. And 221's been going for 6 years now. And yeah, you might see me with a few other hats on too, because I pick up a few other things. I was also doing some work at CDU as well. So yes, I have a few hats, but you know, look for those gaps because you're needed there.
Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keane, so I'm the discipline lead of psychology here and at CDU, and I also coordinate the postgrad clinical psychology program. But I also feel like I'm sitting here representing, there's a lot of academics from social work, like Kim's there, Ruth's there, Bruce is somewhere, I've seen Di and Angus and Billy and people here, so all my colleagues that are sitting here within social work and psychology. So I guess in terms of a journey to academia sort of side of things, mine's also very, very varied. I actually did music when I finished school. Things happened, and then I ended up actually had my own personal training and then strength conditioning business, really. And that's how I got into psychology, because I was training people, you know, general pops, but also athletes, and actually started to realize that there's this whole mental sort of side of that. And actually wanted to learn more about that. So I went to university as a mature age student to do psychology, but actually wanted to do sports psychology. And then, you know, you meet people along the way and amazing mentors and so forth. And it was actually my honours research supervisor who's like, hey, have you ever thought about doing clinical? I was like, no, people like think about it. And he actually said, you should think about doing a PhD as well, because I was really torn between the two. Like, I really enjoy the research and really enjoy the clinical as well. And yeah, like lots and lots of things later, that's what I did. My PhD was in trauma and homelessness. So yeah, definitely there's a need for psychology there. Happy to talk to you, yeah, sort of later, but that's essentially how I got here. And yeah, encourage you to talk to the other team around as well. And we've missed someone.
You have to press a button or?
No.
Hello, everyone. Oh, gosh. Sorry I was late. I was actually busy being a social worker. Okay. And anyway, got here without speeding, which is great. I've been a social worker for over 35 years, but I'm not the oldest here on the panel. Okay. And so it means that I don't want to bore you to death with every single thing that I've done, but I'll try and give you the most important points about my love for social work. First of all, as a kid, I was determined to become a vet. Anyone that knows me, I'm the crazy frog lady, and I love dogs, every single creature there is. And teachers would say to me, seriously think about becoming a doctor. So I was guilty of saying this. No, I don't like humans, right? I will stick with the animals. Got myself into deep shit. Oh, I swear, just warning, okay? Got myself into deep trouble when I was a teenager. And a social worker came to visit me because I was really in trouble. And I thought after she left me, oh, I told really good lies and I'm in deep trouble, and she's left me in a deep shit of a trouble. And so I thought, if there's other kids like me, and this is what a social worker is, I think I better become a social worker. So it wasn't like she was a good thing. It was that I realised I needed to be the help that I needed. right? And so to this very second, because I can say that I try really hard to be the light in the darkness for people. And social work has been a tremendous carriage for me from the moment that I started as a young person to now, of doing the best I can to do right. So when people say, oh, you're a do-gooder, I find it really offensive, right? I'm a person who will do right, okay? So I am a person who will advocate, speak up for the voiceless, challenge people, and particularly the other important point about me is I'm Aboriginal. My mother's Aboriginal and my father's German, and I identify strongly as an Aboriginal person. And it's also social work has been part of the carriage for me to do whatever I can to help Aboriginal people. And so there's no retirement plan, so I've got to work till I drop. And I hope during that time we stop talking about closing the gap and that we have finally done the best we can to improve the world for everyone, but particularly Aboriginal people. I don't know what the questions were originally, but I obviously went on a roll, okay?
Okay. That was perfect. Thank you. So what I'm hearing from the panel so far, and I hope you guys have got your listening ears on, is use your networks, because you never know who's going to know someone who might have a job for you in Alice Springs or a remote area or anywhere else. That these people here sitting on the panel are all lifelong learners. They're all learning something new all the time, whether it's through formal study or through changing jobs and having to learn new things. And I'm also hearing to look for areas where you have a passion or where there might be a gap that you think you can fill. So you don't necessarily have to go down the standard path. You know, look to the sides every now and then and see what else is around you. Okay, so next question. What do you think are the essential qualities that you or employers look for in student applications and in students? So if you are posting a job, what are the sorts of things that you are going to be looking for in those candidates? So you don't all have to answer this if you don't want to, but if anybody would like to have a go, yeah.
So I recruit on attitude and problem-solving skills. Transferable skills are ideal, qualifications are helpful, but most other things can be taught if you can recruit somebody that's willing to learn and to drive their own learning as well.
Anyone else? Yeah, go for it. So what we'll be looking for in an organisation like Army, Air Force, or even Navy, I'll speak on behalf of all three services, is you've got to want to be a leader. Being just a psychologist isn't necessarily enough for this role. You've got to be willing to work as part of a team. You have to be adaptable, and yeah, you have to be ready to lead by example as well. Is uniform members don't necessarily have advocates for mental health within service also. Sure, yeah, there's Department of Veteran Affairs that can step in here and there and open arms as external organisations, but often psychologists will have to actually step in and challenge the kind of greater health system within defence. So yeah, essentially need to be prepared to have a backbone and that sort of thing as well. Yeah, so I encourage you, yeah, if you are interested in becoming an officer and a leader, as well as a psychologist, then those are the things we'll be looking for.
I'd like to also speak of my previous employment before becoming a social worker. I worked for about 25 years in the employment industry, and I used to train people to go for interviews. And some of these people may have never worked or may have just come out of jail and things like that. What I would say to people when you're going for interviews, please research the place that you are going for that interview. Have an interest in that organisation. It's not just a job that you're going for. You are working for somewhere that you need to have a passion for. Have a look at their mission statement. Have a look at their ethics and values and think, is that what yours are? And be able to, because one of the questions employers always ask, can you tell us why you're going for this job? And if you have researched and can say, your company does this and I believe in this and it aligns with my values, I think, and that is particularly important as a social worker, because you need to be going to an organisation that has social work ethics and values the same as what you would have.
I'll say, I'll try my hardest not to talk too much. But that's really hard, okay? The thing that stands out for me, because I have been a manager a number of times and had to employ people, and it's actually really beautiful when someone walks in the room and you can see straight away compassion is number one, right? Don't ever, ever underestimate the importance of compassion. Compassion in the workplace with your colleagues, compassion with those clients or the people that you're working alongside with, but also importantly, the stories that people share with you. Compassion must always be there. So I really encourage you, never ever fall into being judge, jury and persecutor. People do not need that. They do that themselves, okay?
Thank you. So I am the Deputy CEO for Readers and Communities in Territory Families at the moment. So that covers child protection, family support, youth justice, housing and other areas. I think there's two parts that I'll answer. Look, let's be honest, guys, if you're a social worker and a psych, there's plenty of work out there for you, right? We've got a national skill shortage, so you couldn't be graduating at a better time. But I think picking up, it's Josephine, isn't it? Yeah, hey. I think picking up on Josephine's point, it's one thing to land a job. I think it's another issue to find a job that aligns to your values and what are the attributes that you need to have in order to be an effective worker. So, of course, as soon as I say child protection, people go, ooh, and cringe. And I know Tony's up the back there. Hey, Tony. So, you know, there's moral questions you need to ask yourself. No offense, even like with defense, can I work in the system or can I work out the system? What best aligns to my values? So I think it's really important that you reflect on what your values are and how you want to be influential and effective from a point of compassion. And we certainly can see in the workplace graduates that come in and it's just not the right fit for a whole range of reasons. So reflect on what suits your values. Also reflect on your own experience. And some workplaces can be really healthy for you and others not. So I myself started in child protection. I've moved into housing for a whole range of reasons that better suits me. So be adaptable, but also reflective on what best suits your your values. Anyone else?
Just reflecting on what everyone said and thinking about, you know, students maybe listening and they're going, but how do I know how to do that and so forth? And so I guess reassuring you that, you know, at undergraduate level, at honours level and at master's level, social work and psychology, we train you to do that. And that's something that not just how to do it, but that's something that becomes embedded within yourself as a professional moving forward. So self-reflective practice and so forth. So reassuring you that, you know, you're not expected to just know how to do it. And part of what we do is help you to develop those, because we're all professionals as well who have been through the same process they're in. So
I'll just quickly say something. So I think the last thing that I just want to mention, because I totally agree with what everyone has said, is that it's okay to not like a job and change your job. And I feel like in social work and psychology, it's actually seen sometimes as a positive to have different experiences and know who you are as a social worker or a psychologist. That's sometimes seen as better than someone who's just worked in one place but hasn't applied themselves and their values. So it's okay to change and it's okay to not like certain areas.
Thanks, everyone. In addition, what else could I say? At Danila Dilba, wherever you are on your learning journey, even if you haven't finished graduating yet, very likely, if you are interested in seeking employment with us, just checking it out, like making an inquiry with someone and expressing some interest, you'll be quite surprised at the spectrum of opportunity that there is in our organisation. And whether you're, like I said, undergrad or master's trained, I think the best quality that you can have, apart from holding your own values and staying true to them, is a willingness to be able to walk alongside people, regardless of what their journey is, because we're all on a learning journey together. And actually, that's the biggest privilege for me as a psychologist, is actually be invited to journey alongside and to listen to story with people. So I'll just drop that one with you.
Great, thank you. I am going to open up for questions very soon. So if you've got something that's ticking away in the back of your mind, just hang on to that thought for a moment and then we'll get some questions in a minute. So the next thing I'd like to ask is there anything that you would have done differently if you'd had the opportunity in your career? Anyone?
So as I mentioned, I did 2 degrees. So I was like 7 years at uni in the end because I guess I wasn't ready. And I often reflect, and people often ask me, like, if you had have taken the time to think about studying just social work, would you have done that? And how I think about it is actually that me having both psychology and social work background makes me have a different perspective and a different way. I do a lot of education and training and a different way of teaching and connecting with people. And so I don't think I'd change it at all, even though it was a long time of me studying and I'm still paying off my HECS. No, I don't think I'd change it. And I use all of those skills in my work and I get recognition from my work because of the way that I do it. And that's because of those things.
Okay.
I worked most of the way through doing my study, and for various reasons, I didn't pass every subject on the first go, and that caused a lot of stress and pressure and, you know, financial concerns and those kind of things sort of all the way through. And probably it was because I continually bit off more than I could chew. If I'd slowed down and just done one subject, you know, while different life changes were happening, or while, you know, I needed to be more present at work, that would have also been fine, and I probably would have got there in the same amount of time, but been less stressed as a result.
My journey is similar. I studied my master's in international community development full-time while working full-time in between my 2 children. And I wondered why I was just completely exhausted and frazzled. And I don't know why I did it in hindsight. I missed out on so much of being a mum and I had no time for me. So I don't think that's a healthy. So when they say you can have it all, that's not true. Okay. So try being more balanced is probably my lesson. Yeah.
I have to agree with being more balanced because I'm a person that sometimes takes on a bit too much. And
manager, that's why she looks at
put my hand up for everything because, you know, that way you're going to get more skills and more to put on your resume and volunteer for this organisation. And I had a child with a disability while I was studying. I was also on lots of committees and working, and I think probably my suggestion is to slow down a little bit and prioritise what you definitely need to get through your studies, to then be able to balance it out, because I can say that probably my son, I missed a lot of time with him while I was studying, but I felt I've got to get this finished. So just to balance it out, and don't overdo it, because otherwise you'll come out of your studies and you'll be worn out before you start work.
That's beautiful. One of the things we do in psychology is really helping people to do some reflection. So I don't think that I've got anything that I would necessarily change about my study trajectory, but probably more of that application of like learning what it actually is to be self-compassionate, particularly if we're trying to encourage our clients to draw on those things, and kindness to ourselves. When we're studying and when we're trying to embrace a career, sometimes we can be our own worst critic, so, cutting yourself some slack and allowing space around what those challenges are rather than being hypercritical. And probably, this is probably just an encouragement really for people who might be contemplating placement and things like that. Keep the main thing the main thing. What are you there for? It's not just to tick a box at the end of your study. Embrace that as an opportunity, because you might actually fall into your passion while you're there. So really be open in your experiences, wherever it is and what you're doing, because you just never know what might creep up on you.
I'll put it real simple. There are times you've got to not take yourself too seriously, right? Being a person who took herself seriously for too long, you're at risk of falling into martyrdom and rescuing and sacrificing your own life and that. So remember, there are times when you can say, I think I've overdid it and I need to go and be lazy, right?
Great, thank you. Does anyone on the floor have questions that they want to ask? Come on, you must have something burning away in the back of your mind. Not yet? Okay. All right. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to tell us what a day in their job looks like. What happens from the moment you get to work until when you leave?
I'll start only because she handed it to me. Let's talk about today. So she wakes up too early because she's thinking about work too much, so obviously taking herself too seriously. Gets there and prioritise and has to tell certain clients who are very demanding of her attention because they like her attention that we're going to make some appointments so that I can better manage the day, right? So we do that, and then as every day presents a crisis or someone else wants my attention, which includes telling them we'll meet you at 1:30 and I must go at 2:30, but it doesn't happen like that. Anyway, every day is moments of extraordinary, and I genuinely mean that. And it's up to you to be inquisitive, caring, and listening, and doing deep listening so that people feel you are truly wanting to hear, okay? Humans are designed for connection. So the more you do what is needed for a person to feel they're connected, the greater the outcome, okay? So I really encourage you to be authentic, be genuine, and be a real human, not a cardboard cutout, okay?
That's beautiful. In order to answer that question, I need to provide some context. Is that okay? Yeah, so I've got the mic, so I guess that's okay. Prior to COVID, I was working a clinic based in Dilborough. Our social emotional wellbeing team is embedded in the clinics with the other allied health professionals and doctors and reception staff, so people would come to the clinic. Since the last COVID wave, when we had to close some services down, we were working from home. Our organisation realised that as they looked through the data, that people were actually engaging really well with our service. There was a really steady flow in and out, rather than just a lot of people not turning up. So I've been really privileged. I mean, every day at work is a privilege. Really privileged to be able to be working from home and delivering telehealth services to Danila Dilba. That's by telephone or by video. So how any day might start for me, it's like I'm being really open here, drag myself out of bed. No, I don't. I have a good morning routine, and I'm very, very clear when I, put my work uniform on and go into my home-based office. It's a very private. I have my self-appointed therapy dog who has decided she doesn't like to sit outside my office anymore, so she's in there with me, and I managed to put her to sleep, and I just hope that I don't put my clients to sleep while I'm speaking with them. And I engage in my day either by telephone or video with my clients. And what I've found in that journey has been very empowering for people where they have a choice of whether they want to pick up the phone, link in by video, enhancing their safety if they don't want to come into the clinic sometimes because they have to walk past everybody and everyone knows their business, but on the phone they don't even have to look at anybody if they don't want to, but nonetheless can really reduce that anxiety about coming into therapy, so it's no longer a barrier. And then when you're working with people through video and suddenly it's not them coming into your space, but you're invited into their space, that's a game changer. And then suddenly here comes the dog that they've been talking about, and that dog's co-regulating in therapy. There is a painting on the wall that they've done of their country, or there's a photo of family, and if they're becoming distressed in session, you've got your grounding points all around the room to link people back in. So this is the privilege of being invited into space with people. And then the day is done. And I close my office door and continue on with the rest of my day. So whereas today I wasn't at work, so I did have to put my work uniform to come in here. It was my day off. There we go. Hope that's okay.
Thank you.
So with my days, I'll talk about, first of all, the 11 years that I was at Royal Darwin Hospital. You never knew what your day was going to be. All your work was generated by a pager, and you might have some extreme things that you went to, and then you might have people that just have Centrelink issues or housing issues. So you never knew each day what you were going to encounter. So then moving into primary healthcare, it was a real shift for me because all of a sudden I didn't have a pager, and that pager used to generate my work each day, and I'd keep looking down for the pager. And I then was in control of when I could book my clients in. And sometimes I do home visits and sometimes they come in and see me. So the day is different and I can spread it out. But sometimes you can plan, like you book the car out and you've got 3 or 4 home visits and you've got it all planned out nicely, and you get into someone's home and something bad has just happened and they need extra time with you. So then you're ringing the next client to say, I'm running a bit late and things like that. So, but one of the things that I do at the end of the day is I'm pretty meticulous with my diary, and I'll look back at my diary and I'll do some reflection of what's happened that day before I go home. Because I have a husband who doesn't want to hear about it. He doesn't want to know about it. And I'm always been very envious of people that are married to another professional, like you're both social workers or both psychs, and you could debrief when you got home, but not my husband. He doesn't want to hear. When I was on call for the hospital, one of the things he'd say, when you come home, don't wake me up and talk to me about what you've just been to. It's really hard. So I also have a horse, and I find that when I go and see my horse at the end of the day, or I go for a ride, I feel really good. But I think one of the things with social work is you can plan all you like, but every day it changes and you have to adapt to what your client's circumstances are.
Well, I don't do client work anymore, so I'm really actually hearing your stories and I'm thinking, what am I doing? So my day started with an urgent media matter because of some behaviours that played out in the media with some young people. So doing flash briefs and media lines. A lot of my time is spent in meetings. Sometimes we do get to talk about complex cases with our frontline teams, which is I really enjoy because I get to kind of think about what would I do and how do I respond. And in truth, I'm often very inspired by the thoughtfulness and the calibre of staff doing really difficult work, particularly those working with clients in remote, because you just make it happen despite the fact there's no services and, you know, you struggle. Also, I guess in my role, I'm responsible for a lot of program approvals and clearing of briefs. So I'd like to say that I have an ethical approach to my reviews of decisions, and I will challenge them at times if I feel that I have something valuable to add or question. I think it's important that we all remain accountable for our decisions, even in leadership roles. And I feel fortunate that my CEO is, in Emma White, she's a social worker with a long experience in frontline in the Kimberleys. So it's really refreshing to be in a meetings where you do talk about practice and you do kind of reflect on kind of those issues from a more human-centered approach. My previous CEO was more corporate, so it really does change the tone. So I guess as a leader with a background in human services, I try to always remind staff, no matter if it's finance or policy, our real business, which is about actually providing services for our people and to do it in a really kind and ethical way. So otherwise, yeah, just lots of meetings.
No, thanks for that. So essentially, I've got a division between what my days look like. Some days I have clinical days, some days are more organisational days, and I guess I'll briefly touch on them, given I'm going to be talking about 2 days rather than 1. So on my clinical days, I'll be at the health centre on base, and we run a walk-in service for people who want to have a chat to a psychologist. Sometimes it is something like that. It's just a kind of half-hour chat. A lot of the times it's often that people are in crisis and they're coming for support. And essentially be my job to essentially be able to essentially bridge that gap between clinical psychology and the culture of the military and find this common ground between the two, so we can have, I guess, a compassionate response for a member while also wearing that uniform and so and living up to those service values. Often when people are at risk or so, we have something called an individual welfare board where their workplace, so their supervisor in their workplace will come in. And so it's my job essentially to be an advocate for that person to go, yeah, this person's in crisis for these reasons or so. These are the reasons they may need, a psychiatric referral, may need to, be put on the ward for a couple of days and put forward, I guess, those clinical opinions to a non-clinical audience. So you have to be really able to translate those big, broad ideas that clinical psychology presents into an actionable plan for someone who has no education in mental health at all. So that might be what a clinical day looks like. An organisational day might be doing something called an occupational suitability assessment on people. So for various reasons, people in the military like to change their job relatively often here and there. Some people may join up as a cook and decide they want to become a pilot. I haven't had vice versa, but sometimes that happens. So as a uniform psychologist, it's my job to essentially go through all their records, their training records, what they said at DFR, so the Defence Force recruiting, whether they've had mental health treatment in the past, to essentially make this large kind of file and report on them. And then I'll interview them in the afternoon, usually that day, and find out what their kind of motivations and interests are in being a pilot. Are they realistic? Do they fit with what essentially being a pilot involves? Do they have compassionate issues that would mean that, okay, this isn't the kind of person I want to get in a helicopter with or a plane with? So that's essentially that suitability piece there. Every now and then I'll also in the afternoons work in private practice just to make sure I'm keeping up my clinical skills and improving them as well.
So my days tend to be meetings, back to back. I really don't like being stuck in the office though. So as best as I can, I plan my meetings to be outside or elsewhere as much as possible. So this morning started my day at about 8 o'clock with a coffee meeting. Then I had to go back to the office for an hour. And then I had a second coffee meeting. And that was a supervision session, which was great because there was lots of reflection in that. And it went two ways as well. There were some really tricky questions that I enjoyed reflecting on, both practice as well as my own management practice in dealing with those scenarios as well. And then this afternoon, I was supposed to be writing a document that I've been avoiding for a while. But because I was in a bit of a reflective space, I thought, why am I avoiding that? And I thought, you know what? I think maybe I haven't been managing myself that well lately. Have I been doing my self-care activities? Actually, I realized I hadn't. So I booked in to do some of those things. I booked in to get some EAP assistance, and I'm organised to catch up with a mate this weekend. So I've got some social things. I realised that I haven't been exercising in the way that I should have. So I'm going on a hike this weekend as well to try and do those kinds of things. So it was a really valuable use of that time. I still haven't done that document, but that's for future Jeff to worry about.
Thank you. I'm not going to tell you about today because I was kind of running between multiple jobs and that it's confusing. But yesterday, or a day where I'm just working for 221, generally for me that looks like I try to have my presentations really prepared for what I'm presenting, and I also try and be really knowledgeable as the organisation that I'm going into. So yesterday I ran a training for a housing organisation, and they just had their key staff in there who will respond to wellbeing of tenants. There was 10 people in the training. I gave them knowledge around best practice around mental health. And then they gave me these really tricky scenarios, and together we worked out how to best work with their policies and best practice for mental health so that they could actually implement mental health in the workplace. So really meaningful conversations every day, a lot of thinking, a lot of listening, because I don't know about every workplace, but I do pride myself on knowing our best practice around mental health. So yeah, a lot of working together, but it's just really exciting to see people grow in this space and become open-minded to being able to have a conversation with maybe a tenant or a client or a community member who might be struggling with their mental health. So I guess on those days, even though they're big days, I actually feel great. So I probably do go to the gym, and I probably do self-care on those days because I think I thrive in chaos a little bit. So yeah, so I think when I'm busier, I'm actually better at looking after my mental health. And I also have a husband who likes to talk about my work too much, so I try and not talk about it at home. Too nosy. So yeah, it's unique for each person, but yeah, I think that everyone can take like the things that they love from their work if they're aligned with their work.
My day is never the same any 2 days, and I think everyone else, the colleagues here, be a bit the same, which is one of the fabulous things about what we do. People have heard me say this before, like I am a clinician at heart as well, and so one of the things is I get my own ducks in a row first, and for me that is prioritizing exercise in the morning because that's my self-care. So yes, I did that this morning. I often do that. But then essentially my day and our day is about the students, because that's what we do. And so, that can involve teaching, clinical supervision, research supervision, and also the team itself, and everything that goes into, actually educating psychology and social work. And just kind of mentioning as well, like we're talking a lot clinically, about things. It's like, don't forget that there are research opportunities. I saw a comment up there about career opportunities, and you can study psychology and social work, but you don't necessarily have to be a clinician. Like if research is your thing and you want to, you know, contribute to evidence base and all the rest of it, that's important as well. I'm kind of flagging it because that's part of my role. I do both things in this job here. Yeah. So, and it's kind of important. Oh, I'll stop.
Thank you, Carol. I'll get you to hang on to that. I think the next question is going to be for you. But I'm seeing that there's a common thread between all the different styles of jobs. So it's about passion and being compassionate in your role. It's a lot about being flexible and being adaptable and being able to just shift your day as you need to. And also make sure that you're practicing self-care, because that seems to be a really important part of it. Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions online. I think the first one was about studying honours. Do you have to do honours straight away after a bachelor's, or can you take a couple of years off?
No, it's the short answer.
The answer is no.
You do not have to do it straight away. No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Kim's just said, do it when you're ready. 100% agree. Yeah, you do not have to do it straight away. You know, there'll be requirements around how long you take off and so forth. But is it, Kate, like really happy to talk with you about that? Just shoot me an email and we can actually help guide you through that.
Yeah. The next question from Catherine is quite a long one. So she retrained later in life, and so she feels that people expect her to have more experience than she actually does in social work. So how would you suggest she addresses that?
Does one of the social work team want to contribute to that? I mean, I can put a lens on it from psychology, but it's like there isn't actually an expectation. Yeah, we all come into study when we come into it, and you are where you are. If you're brand new in something, then you're new learning and so forth. So yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think older people are employed a lot more in all different sorts of roles, and people are not expected to have the same career all the way through their lifespan now. So if you are a career changer, then you're picking up your technical knowledge. It's not really technical, but your theory from your degree, but you bring a whole gamut of life experience and transferable skills with you. So you should be able to use a combination of those to find work. Yep.
Yeah, it's not all about what you did in university, particularly as a social worker, and I'm sure it's with a psychologist as well. Your life skills of what you've done throughout your life is also experience. And also what I used to do with people returning to the workforce that hadn't been to work for years, and particularly mums would say to me, I don't have any skills. I've been a mum at home. Excuse me, I'd say. And we'd list through all the things that they had to juggle. Prisoners coming out of jail. I'd said, what have you learnt while you're in there? And go through all of that. So it's not about just what you've done in your academic studies. It's about your whole life and your work experience that you can add into it.
I was just going to add that don't let it be a barrier for yourself. You know, if it's not a barrier for you, it won't be a barrier for anybody else.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm going to speak on the people who maybe went straight from school into study as well, because I think this goes both ways, is that it is definitely challenges. And I don't know those challenges, but I've always been young in my career. So I was, going into mental health 10 years ago. I know it's a little bit of a cooler space now, but 10 years ago, there was not really any young people in mental health. So generally my colleagues were about 20 years older than me. And I had a lot of hiccups around being young and trying to prove myself. And what I found is that I was trying so hard to prove myself all the time in these situations that I didn't like who I was being. You know, I was trying to control things and I was trying to show my skills all the time. And what I realized as I sort of started to be kinder to myself and just be a bit more genuine is that actually people saw my skills a lot clearer when I was just genuine and I was myself. And then they trusted me not because of my age, but because of the skills that I was showing. And that took me quite a few years to recognize, but I think something that is important as a new grad to recognize, I guess, no matter your age.
Great, thank you. Now, do we have any final questions from the floor? No? Okay. We're going to open up now to some networking, and there is some afternoon tea involved. Please make sure if you had a little question that you were not sure whether you should ask or not, please, these people are so approachable. Come and talk to them and make sure that you get that little question answered. Be brave, make sure you introduce yourself and present yourself well. You never know what might come from a networking session with alumni and with employers. Even if they're not looking now, they might remember you for later. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you so much for giving up your time this afternoon and giving us your words of wisdom. So super interesting. So thank you very much for that. Okay, that brings our session to an end today. Refreshments are out